Hi, and welcome to this next set of video blogs in which I'm going to go over the production of the track Death to the Machine. This is a track that I wrote for the game Affinity, Aeon Rising, and the game is set in a futuristic world where heroes are using their elemental magical powers to defeat robots and machines. Now, the last set of video blogs I went over the production of the track Machines vs. Magic, and in that track it was designed for the combat levels of the game, and the same is true of this track, Death to the Machine, but in particular it was designed for the boss levels. So just like the other track, it had to be adrenaline fueled, tense and very dramatic, but even more so in this case, because it's for the harder levels of the game. I wanted to have even more a sense of urgency, just heighten the intensity. In regards to instrumentation of the track, I wanted it to be similar to the previous track because I wanted the two songs to sound like they belong together. So obviously they need to be different enough so they feel like two different tracks, but I wanted also to make them feel like they should be like part of the same album. That being the case, I wanted to use the same type of electronic drums, which would convey that sense of technological advancement and a sense of synthetic feel. I also wanted to use heavy metal guitar riffs to convey that aggression and sense of urgency, and also wanted to use like futuristic atmospheric type synthesizers to again add to the atmosphere and convey that futuristic world. Also, before I started to write any music down, I thought about the tempo and time signature. Now, in most cases with electronic music and in some heavy metal, 4/4 time signature is most common, but in this case I wanted to do something a little bit different. I went along with a 3/4 time signature, which is a little bit of a different feel, but I also have noticed, like in some cinematic and film music, that 3/4 time signature has been used quite effectively to create combat type music. So I thought I'd give myself a bit of a challenge and write something in 3/4 time. In regards to tempo, I wanted to obviously a fast track, so I went with 170 beats per minute, which is pretty fast, and I think it works really well for the track. Now, also in regards to the melody and harmonies, I went with a Locrian mode, using C as the tonal center. So that's basically a mode which is very dark and menacing, and has a mysterious, aggressive sound to it. So I really like the Locrian mode, and it's actually used quite a bit in heavy metal. The notes, if you're wondering, is C, D flat, E flat, F, G flat, A flat, B flat, and then back to C. Let's have a look at my Pro Tools session here, and you can see that I have my instrument tracks here. I've got 5 different instruments, and in the first case here I've got the Native Instruments Battery 4 drum kit inserted here. That was the same drum kit that I used in the previous track, Machine vs. Magic. I've used the TerraCore kit, which I find is a really cool electronic drum kit that's got a lot of distortion effects and alarms and sirens, and I decided to go with the same kit to create that continuity about it. Then the next 4 instrument tracks, I'm using the Vienna Ensemble Pro server, and this interface here, you can see where you can connect and disconnect to the server. In case of the first instance, I have SR5 Rock Bass, which is a virtual instrument done by Promini, and it's a really cool instrument. It's a Stingray 5-string bass that's been sampled, and you basically got all your different strings and pickup noises, natural harmonics and slides and scratches and scrapes and things like that. Now, it is recorded just as a direct input sound, so if you want to add an amplifier, you need to use an an amp sim like Native Instruments Guitar Rig 5 or Overloud TH2. In this case I've used Tune Tracks Easy Mix 2, and I'm using a preset by Mark Needham. He's a very famous producer. He's done work with artists like Fleetwood Mac, Chris Isaak, Pink, The Killers, Shakira, Train, Moby, and the list goes on. So he's got a distorted bass preset here, and I've used that for my bass amp. So that's the first instance of Vienna Ensemble. The next one is another Promeny virtual instrument, and it's a Flying V guitar, sampled ESP Alexi Blackie, the guitar that Alexi Laiho from Children of Bodom uses, and they've sampled this guitar in nice detail, and it's a really cool metal guitar. Again, like the bass though, it is recorded in DI, so you do need an amp sim. So I've used, again, Tune Tracks Easy Mix 2, and this is Nemesis Guitar 3 by Andy Sneap. It's a preset that he's done, and Andy Sneap is an awesome producer for metal type bands. He's worked with bands such as Exodus, Napalm Death, Machine Head, Testament, Arch Enemy, Opeth, Killswitch Engage, Trivium, Soulfly, Bullet for My Valentine, Slayer, Saxon, and Fear Factory. So Andy Sneap, he just got some really cool distortion, amp type sounds, and this Nemesis Guitar 3 is really cool, so I've used that one. The next virtual instrument that I'm using is this Synth, which is hosted in Vienna Ensemble, and I'll bring that up. And basically I've got here 8 different synthesizers I'm using, each assigned to different MIDI tracks. Now the first 3 is Predator Synth, which is done by Rob Pappen, really cool synthesizer. The next 2 tracks is another Rob Pappen synth, which is Blue 2. Then I've got Native Instruments Massive Synth, and then the next 2 tracks is Native Instruments Razor Synth, which is hosted in the Reactor software. So yeah, I've got 8 different synthesizers hosted in this Vienna Ensemble Pro instance. And then finally, the last Vienna Ensemble Pro instance here is the strings, and I'm using the Vienna Symphonic Library's Dimension Strings pack. I'm using violins, violas, cellos, and double basses. The first 2 here, same MIDI channel, and they're 8 players each, which makes it a total of 16 players, which is your first violin section. Then the next 2, which is on the same MIDI channel, is 8 players and 6 players, total of 14 players, and they're my second violin section. Then I've got 2 sets of 6 players, the violas, which gives me 12 players in total, and then we've got another 12 players of cellos, and then 8 players of double basses. This is using the Vienna Instruments Pro software, where each different articulation for the instruments have got a key switch. It's got powerful tuning and humanization factors, so each different player has its own tuning and humanization settings. It's very powerful and gives you a really lifelike sound. But I won't go into too much detail because it's a whole tutorial just on its own to go through that. For the reverb and ambience, I'm using Vienna Mia Pro, which is multi-impulse response convolution reverb. And in this case, I'm using the Teldex Hall, which is a film scoring stage in Germany. And here you can set up your microphone recording setup. Now it's got heaps of different options to choose from, but ranges from different mid-side arrangements to you got your Blum line, you got your XY. That's using hypercardioids. You got ORTFs, and you got 888. So yeah, that's my microphone setup, and then you can position your players on the virtual sound stage. So I've got my first violins on the left hand side here and the second violins on the right. Violas here behind them on the left hand side, and cellos on the right, and double basses at the back in the middle there. And you can muck around with the width of these instruments and also change, you know, the angle and the direction, and that will all give you a different sound and reverberation to the instrument. So yeah, that's the last instance of the Vienna Ensemble Pro. So there are all my instrument tracks, and then here I've got my 16 Midi tracks which will connect to these instrument tracks. So I have obviously my battery 4 drum kit, my bass guitar, the V metal guitar, and then I have 8 different synthesizers here, and then at the end my string section. That's the setup of the Pro Tools session. And here you can see I've got the tempo at 170 beats per minute and time signature at 3/4, and key was not C major, but it's C Locrian mode. So that will have to do it for this blog. Check out the next blog, in which I'm going to go over the actual parts of the track and how I composed the music. So check out that one next time, guys. See you soon.